Am I wrong for uninviting my family from my wedding because they want me to share it with my sister? To preface this, we only got engaged about 10 weeks ago and have plans for November 2021, but if there's still issues at the time we'll postpone. My sister, Rosie, and I have always had a complex relationship, but my bigger problem is her fiancé, Mick, who I detest with my entire being. Mick is like a caricature of the phrase toxic masculinity. One time my daughter, age 7, painted my son, age 5, and my fiancé's nails, and Mick called my son and fiancé sisses because they had nail polish on. He's also hit on me in the past and shamed me. So yeah, hate him. Fiancé also hates him. My parents wanted to invite all about 40 people to our wedding. Our guest list only 20 guests, so the agreement we came to was they pay for 2/3 of the wedding as they had 2/3 of the guests. So far all we have arranged is a venue, and it's a good thing we did too, because there's only 3 venues in the area and November 2021 was the earliest date any of them had available. Rosie and Mick got engaged last week. Rosie has looked for venues and the first available date is April 2022. Mom and Dad told us today that we will now be having a double wedding. Everyone involved is aware of the issues we have with Mick. We refused to share the wedding. My parents then said they were paying for 2/3 of it, so they should have final say. I responded that they don't get a say on who is getting married. They said I was being immature and should learn to share the spotlight, and I said that my issue was seeing Mick standing next to my fiancé at the altar. My parents tried to young lady me, I'm nearly 28, saying that Rosie can't get anything in the next 18 months, and it wasn't fair to make her wait that long. Plus if they are paying for well over half the wedding and won't be interfering on anything else, we should allow this. I then said that we would pay for the entire wedding ourselves and go back to our original guest list minus my parents, Mick and Rosie, then hung up. I definitely just snapped in the moment, but the idea of sharing my wedding with Mick gives me a visceral negative reaction. Since hanging up, my fiancé says that he's fine with this development, though he wasn't expecting it, but he supports me. However, my parents and sister feel I overreacted and called me a but for uninviting them over them having one thing they wanted at the wedding they are paying for. I felt pretty confident in my choice, but then my brother, who hates Mick as much as we do, said I needed to calm the duck down, and that the logical response here would have been to return my parents' money and remove their guests, not to uninvite my parents from my wedding entirely, and said unless I fix it, I'd be going full bridezilla. Am I wrong? Edit. To be clear, I'm 100% returning the money. The idea of the money was that we add my parents' guests, which is no longer happening, so I'll be returning their money. Am I wrong for being upset when my husband took my book and refused to give it back until I make him dinner? I, 24 female, study pediatrics and it's been the hardest year of medical school. It's physically and mentally exhausting. I began working at an outpatient clinic from 8 AM to 5 PM. I'm currently studying for National Board of Medical Examiners. With little time I try to study during lunch break and in the evening when I get home and after I make my husband a meal. I'm 14 weeks pregnant and it's incredibly exhausting studying hard for the upcoming exam, and I can barely find the time between the clinic, studying and self-care. I use the past year papers and learn about the type of topics in those papers and read as much as I can, plus going through textbooks and summarizing and taking notes. My husband, male 27, has been getting a little demanding lately, and I noticed that, especially after I started preparing my exam. I spent time studying in the bedroom. He'd come in and ask me to take some time to make him dinner. I'd make him dinner then go back to studying. Then, after he finishes, he'd knock on the door and ask me to do the dishes. I'd get frustrated because he won't do the dishes and knows that I have no time for washing the dishes, and then he'd take a shower and leave the bathroom wet, causing me to take time to clean it up. Then he'd tell me to go study elsewhere because he wanted to sleep. I study in the kitchen sometimes, in the living room when he's sleeping, in the morning. Before I go to work I'd wait for him to wake up to make him coffee and then leave at 8:30, which is a bit late. He wanted to invite his family for dinner, but I told him I was busy studying. He got mad at me for that and said that I needed to do more around the house, but I do what I can trying to manage. Last night, he got home at 10 p.m. He came into the room wanting me to make him dinner. He got upset when I told him it was way past dinner time and wanted me to make him something to eat. I told him there was leftovers in the fridge that he can eat, but he wanted me to cook. My exam was approaching and I needed every minute to be able to study as much as I can. We started arguing. He said he got fed up with my treatment and took my book, said I'd get it back once I make him dinner. I was so angry with what he did, I demanded the book back and told him to stop acting so selfishly and ruin my career. He lashed out that he was working all day as well and didn't have a decent meal. We argued back and forth. He gave it back and went to the other room. He made himself a sandwich and went to sleep. Before leaving for work he said that I was treating him poorly and that I need to take care of him more and not ignore him like that. He demanded that I apologize for last night, but I didn't. Just to make things clear and tell his side of the situation. He says that I'm neglecting him lately and was upset that I don't do the things I used to do before I started studying. He just won't understand that my current circumstances are difficult and that he needs to be supportive during this time instead of behaving like this. Edit. He is in law enforcement. He works long hours and isn't always at home. The reason I do most of the chores is because I know how hard he works, but he should support me and do the same for me when I'm studying and trying to keep everything balanced. It makes me sad that this is how he reacted towards me needing time and support. Am I wrong for correcting my son's teacher? Preface. My son is 12 years old. My mom is in a nursing home as she has severe dementia and needs round-the-clock care. My brother and I are both single parents with full-time jobs. We can no longer care for her but visit often. Anyway, my son has been doing virtual classes. He's taking Spanish, and they are going over the different words in families, along with how family dynamics work in different countries. Because my son does his work in our kitchen, I heard them while I was making lunch one day. He was on mute. The teacher talked about multi-generational households. She then said those are rare in America because no one cares about family and just push them on strangers to be abused. My son unmuted himself and chimed in that nursing homes aren't bad. His teacher called him biased. She has no idea his grandma is in one and uncultured. I said nothing then, but emailed her later. I said I overheard everything and that it's highly inappropriate to say these types of things when many kids have relatives in one. I said this could cause alienation or hurt feelings. I then added she needs to do her research on why some families cannot care for elderly members. She wrote back and said she'd address it in class and apologized. The next day I wasn't in the kitchen during class, but my son said his teacher apologized and said she shouldn't have inserted her own opinions on healthcare. I sent her a thank you email. Well, I guess my son told his dad, my ex, and he called me a Karen. He said what she said hurt no one. Was I wrong? Did you like this video? If so, consider subscribing to Reddit Reddit. We upload new videos and updates every day. Thank you for watching.